Alright, it's been a while. Let's see how the old YouTube channel's been doing.
So one of the things people are...
Holy crap, 35,000 views. Not too bad. Look at the questions. Dear Mover, how did you fly the F-16 in the Air Force and the F-18 in the Navy? Most people don't do that. Well, I guess I could just show you the video of me applying. They were kind of desperate.
But anyone who can fly a plane would be useful.
Okay, good. Civilian.
I can fly. I'm pilot.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Mondays with Mover. I am Mover, C.W. Lemoine, author of the Spectre series and the Alex Shepard series, Absolute Vengeance, and I am the Sheepdog. Thanks for watching. I know it's been a long time since the last upload, probably over a month now, but been a little busy with my other jobs and stuff. My last video I talked about the 5 myths of becoming a fighter pilot, and also previous video to that I talked about how I became a fighter pilot, and that video seems to have taken off. Got a lot of new subscribers. Thank you, welcome. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and share. But I've had a lot of new subscribers, and that video kind of stopped with me talking about going to the B course, F-16 school, and from there I've got a lot of questions on how I became an F-16 pilot to an F-18 pilot, how I flew from the Navy to the Air Force. So today I'm going to talk about that, answer some of those questions, and maybe give you, some more stories. I've been reading the comments, and it looks like you guys love the, just the story. I never thought my story was all that unique or different or anything like that, but, I'm glad it can help, motivate you guys and help you to find your path. So picking up where we left off, I went down to, F-16 school at Luke. I got the air-to-ground, top air-to-ground award for that. Then went to Homestead, flew F-16s down there for 4 years. It was a great time. The best flying I've ever done, really. I mean, it was, over the water. We had our own airspace. We had, basically the tower was ours. We could do whatever we wanted. Anything we requested. We didn't have to worry about, complicated airspace or, infringement upon our airspace. So it was really good flying. The Block 30 Big Mouth F-16 is probably the best fighter I've ever flown, greater than a 1-to-1 thrust to weight ratio. If you'd go down low, you'd be, 8,000 feet in burner and accelerating at 9 Gs, and that's, it's just an awesome machine. But, I got to deploy to Iraq in 2009, Operation Iraqi Freedom, got to do a red flag. Got a lot of great experience, drop bomb, shoot the gun, all that stuff. So it was a great experience. However, I'm from Louisiana. I wanted to go home. My dad had prostate cancer, so in 2011, I just wasn't happy with living in Homestead in general. So I started looking for ways to transfer, and I actually got hired by an A-10 squadron, so full circle. Got hired to go fly A-10s down at Barksdale, which I was really looking forward to, because they had just gone from a schoolhouse to combat code, and ironically or sadly, they closed too. In fact, I had gotten a job offer, we were doing the paperwork, and the wing commander at Homestead came up to me one day and said, "Hey, you still planning on going down to Barksdale?" And I said, "Absolutely, that's going to be an awesome gig." And they said, "Well, you might want to reconsider that," because a thing called a POM 13, which was a funding for the Air Force, that's coming out for 2013, and said basically the Barksdale unit was going to get absorbed in another unit. So that was now 2 A-10 units that I'd gotten hired by that went away. So I'm kind of bad luck for the A-10 community. But as it happened, one day I was flying cross country, me and another young wingman. So I was a relatively mid-range brand new flight lead. We were going to from New Orleans to Wichita. To Shepherd, we went and saw our, new hire UPT guys, did unrestricted climb. We were in clean F-16s, which was, awesome. We were going to Colorado, to Denver to go see his family before moving on to San Antonio. Anyway, we do the unrestricted climb. We've got plenty of gas, or at least I think. We get to the Denver airspace, and Denver Center says, "Hey, Reform 1, can you guys divert to Colorado Springs?" I said, "Well, why are we diverting?" And they said, "Well, because the runway at Buckley shut down." I said, "Well, we'd like to wait." So we held, and I kept checking my wingman's gas, to make sure that we had enough fuel to hold. And just as he's about to call bingo, they're telling us, "Oh yeah, an F-18 shut down the runway." And we're complaining about, oh, Navy guys, shutting down our runway. And they let us in. They let us go and fly in. So we did a couple patterns and landed. And as I'm taking off all my gear and getting out, they tow this F-18 right next to my jet, and both tires are blown. And I'm looking at it laughing, and I see on the side it says VFA 204 River Rattlers. And when I was down at the A-10 unit, I had a friend that really awesome guy. If I can get him on the channel, I will. He flew Black Hawk helicopters. He flew I think the Kiowa for the Army National Guard. Then he flew F-15s. Then he flew A-10s. Then he went down to the Navy. So I knew he was in the Navy. And I knew he was in that squadron. So I sent him a text with a picture and said, "Hey, is this one of yours?" And no kidding, a couple seconds later, I hear, "So what if it is?" And it's a guy behind me. And I turn around and he's like, "Hey, you still planning on doing that A-10 thing?" And I said, "Well, it sounds like it's not going to happen, but I'm not sure." And he's like, so he took me to dinner. And he said, "Hey, look, we've got this, I did the inter-service transfer from the Air Force Reserve to the Navy Reserve. You can too. Come fly Hornets here in New Orleans." And I said, "Man, that'd be, great. I'd be, back where I grew up and, went to college in Tulane." So I flew down another time, met with the skipper, the squadron commander, and, they gave me a job offer. So went through the process. It's an inter-service transfer, and it takes, you have to get your commission scrolled through Congress. Actually, at the time it was in 2003, so it only had to go through the Secretary of the Navy and, the Secretary side instead of all the way to Congress. It took about 6 months, and in 2012 it finally finalized as we were doing readiness inspections and stuff. So I stuck around a little bit to help with what's called an ORI, Operations Readiness Inspection, which I don't know that the Air Force even does anymore. I think they do kind of a hybrid. Anyway, stuck around, and then in the summer of 2012, moved back down to New Orleans and started flying the F-18. It was kind of a, trial by fire, if you will, because they put me through what's called a CAT Other transition course, which was basically, 8 rides and a check ride. So, it took like 3 rides and I was solo, and 4 rides and I was solo in the Hornet. I came down, my first flight out of training was a hurricane evacuation, and just kind of off to the races from there. So flew the F-18 in New Orleans for about 4 years. So I mean, even then, I talked about make them tell you no, and that's kind of, things started going downhill for me. It just, stuff happens. A year after I've been there, my dad passed away, which was kind of a hard time for me. I have a brother that's special needs, so I had to kind of take care of him and stuff, and so it was kind of a rocky time, going through that. And then a year later, or 2 years after he died, so 2015, I was out dogfighting, doing basic fighter maneuvers, and I came back and I had back pain. And it turns out, it was just muscular, but when they were trying to find out what was happening, they sent me to go get a CAT scan, a CT scan for my back, and they found cysts in my left kidney, right kidney, and liver. And they diagnosed me with polycystic kidney disease, which sucked because I was immediately grounded. And in 2015, I thought I'd never fly a fighter again. I thought I'd never fly anything again. I mean, they were worried about the complications that could possibly arise. I was stage 1, but I thought I would never touch an airplane again. So 6 months of waiting, sitting around, not knowing what my fate was going to be, and I got a waiver. I got a waiver for it through the Naval Aviation Medical Institute. Thought I was good to go. Started flying again after 6 months. Thought it was the greatest thing ever. And then a few months later, the skipper comes up to me and says, "Hey, you still need to find another job." And I said, "Well, why?" And they said, "Well, because while NAMI, the medical folks, said you can't fly, or you can fly, you can go back to flying, the personnel side of the Navy, BUPERS, had their own doctors, and they said, well, your condition is, you can stay in the Navy, but you can't deploy anymore, because if your condition worsens, we can't do anything." And of course, my nephrologist, who I'd been dealing with, was like, "Well, how long are you deploying for?" And I said, "Well, 6 months, a year." And he's like, "You'd have to deploy for like 10 years for that to even be a factor." So I tried to fight it. I did a congressional to try to get the code change, and I did. I was successful, but I just ran out of time. And the way it worked is I had, basically once my category changed to non-deployable, I had a certain amount of time to find another unit. So I got hired by Air Force Reserve unit flying T-38A adversary air, and that transfer itself takes, that became its own issue, because I had to convince the Air Force Reserve Command to accept the waiver, and I had to go through the process, which takes about a year once you're a major or an 04 to scroll and actually go through Congress and everything to get your commission done. So I ran out of time with the Navy, and in September of 2016, I stopped flying F-18s. I'd been doing adversary air for them, and luckily, as it were, I did back in 2014, you guys may or may not know, the rules changed, actually back in 2013, but the rules changed on the FAA written for your airline transport pilot. Used to, you just had to go get an FAA written, or the ATP written, and then you could go straight to take your check ride with a little Seminole or a Piper, you know, some kind of a Duchess or something, and then you can go apply to the airlines. Well, back post-Colgan, after the Colgan crash, they changed the rules, said you have to have 1,500 hours, and you have to do what's called an ATP CTP. So I never really had any desire to be an airline guy, but I didn't want, you know, that opportunity to expire because I knew it would cost a lot more money. So I took the written right at the deadline, you know, July 27th of 2014, and it's only good for 2 years. So in 2016, right around the time where I'm, you know, staring at the light at the end of the tunnel, it's pretty much a train saying your career is about to be over, you know, with no follow-on, I went and did the ATP check ride so that, you know, my written would expire. And just on a whim, I applied to the major airlines, and I got a job. So just as my job in the Navy Reserve flying Hornets ended, I started flying 737s for a major U.S. airline. And in that time, for those 2 years, up until about 2 months ago, actually, I was in the process of transferring to the Air Force Reserve so I could keep flying. Probably will never fly fighters again, just based on being out of the jet for as long as I have, and you know, just not current and stuff like that. But it's a great opportunity, and as of May, I swore into the Air Force Reserve as a major, and then this summer they had to process me in, so you know, it took a while with all the medical stuff to get waivers and all that stuff for the kidney stuff. But in this fall, I'll start flying T-38s again. So kind of a quick and dirty of how it happened. As you can see, or you can tell, you know, it's not cut and dry. You know, even once you get there, stuff happens. You know, I never thought I'd be an airline pilot. I thought, you know, I'd fly fighters until I was, you know, 55 years old, and then nothing. And, you know, even when I was originally diagnosed, I thought, you know, for sure I was done with aviation altogether, you know, and it was kind of depressing. But perseverance and, you know, keep pushing through. It's not that I'm special. It's not that I'm better than anybody else. It's just that, you know, I believe you make them tell you no. You know, you keep asking, and I did, and that's what happened with the Hornet. You know, I mean, I pushed and reapplied and pushed until eventually they did say no, and it was just too far gone, and I couldn't go back to the F-18. So, you know, I moved on to the next thing, which is an awesome opportunity. I'm looking forward to flying the T-38. You know, we're doing support for a very good mission for the F-22, and you know, as an adversary for them to get them training. And there's a lot of young guys in this squadron for the active duty side that, you know, will be able to fly with and, you know, kind of help out as they, you know, progress in their career. So it's a good opportunity. It's you know, it's not cookie cutter. It's not linear. Sometimes things work out, sometimes don't. But, you know, the biggest thing is, you know, you just have to keep trying. So that's a story of, you know, how I got from Air Force Reserve to Navy Reserve back to Air Force Reserve. And, you know, it's still an ongoing thing. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, maybe I do end up back in a fighter, or maybe that's it. The biggest thing is, you know, if you apply yourself and keep trying, you know, there really is no limit to what you can do. So based on the comments that I've seen in these messages, I've gotten a ton of messages. I wish I could respond to all of them, you know, with writing books and flying for the airlines and doing the reserve thing and doing the sheriff's office thing. I don't necessarily have enough time to mentor individual people, you know, in specific situations. However, I will, you know, just based on what you guys have been asking, I'll start making videos just kind of explaining the process. You know, in the next video, I'll talk about kind of how to get, you know, from step zero, you know, where you need to go, what you need to do, and I'll give you the academics on, you know, what OTS means, what you know, the different ways of becoming a fighter pilot are, and then we can talk about, you know, how to succeed once you're in training, you know, how to rush a unit, stuff like that. So really excited because there's a lot more opportunities now for these videos that I didn't expect to happen. I thought this was just going to be, you know, kind of an author vlog talking about books, but, you know, hey, you go where it takes you. So looking forward to it. If you haven't already, please like, share, subscribe, hit the little bell notification. That'll give you a notification when I make a new video. and I'll try to help as best I can. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.